What if the same eyes you use every day are hiding an entire layer of reality from you, and a small, intentional change to what you eat, paired with 10 minutes of a very particular gaze, can shift that filter in a matter of days? Listen closely. This is not a promise of a miracle guaranteed by science, but a careful, experiential method reported by many practitioners and described in certain esoteric writings. In some Gnostic sources, manuscripts preserved in the Nag Hammadi library, including passages attributed to the Gospel of Mary, there are accounts of sight being trained, of chosen students learning to perceive what normally passes unnoticed. People who practice these techniques say that when visibility returns, the balance of power in their inner world changes. If that idea speaks to you, stay with me for the next several minutes. If you want the downloadable 7-day checklist that outlines the routine I'll describe, type visible in the comments and I'll make it available. First, set the stakes. We live inside a perceptual economy. Our eyes and our brains are not passive receivers of all there is. They select and prioritize. Central vision, what you use to read, to focus on faces, to identify details, dominates daily life. Peripheral vision is broader, more sensitive to motion, less insistent about sharp edges, tuned to ambiguity and pattern. Your brain, through a lifetime of habits and cultural training, learns to privilege certain frequencies of input and to ignore others. Many esoteric traditions argue that this selection process is not neutral. It can be shaped, narrowed, and even weaponized by patterns of attention that favor what is useful to a certain kind of order. In Gnostic frames, this is expressed as a kind of veil or filter. In contemporary terms, we can understand it as a learned suppression of subtle sensory channels. When those channels are reopened, practitioners report perceiving fleeting shapes, movements, and presences that previously went unnoticed. Those reports are not uniform. They are anecdotal and subjective, but consistent enough across many testimonies to merit a careful, non-dismissive exploration. Before I teach the practical method, we need a clear, simple map of how vision works in this context. Imagine your visual world split into two registers. The first is the narrow, high-resolution beam that your conscious mind uses to interrogate objects: a face across the room, the words on a page, the specific color of a cup. The second is the diffuse, low-resolution field that detects motion, rhythm, temperature cues, and contextual shapes. Evolutionarily, peripheral vision is older and tuned to tell you if something is approaching from the edge of your world. It sacrifices detail for sensitivity. The brain decides which register to amplify and which to mute. That decision is not purely biological. It is shaped by expectation, fear, distraction, and habit. Now add one more element: the pineal, a small gland near the center of the brain that many traditions have associated with an inner seeing, a third eye. For centuries, writers and mystics have used the pineal as a symbol and as a physiological correlate of subtle perception. Modern neuroscience treats the pineal primarily in terms of hormonal regulation. Mystics include it in a broader psychospiritual map. For our purposes, treat the pineal as a bridge between metaphoric and physiological language, something whose health and quietude can support a calmer, clearer mind that is less likely to be hijacked by noise. This is why we pair a gentle dietary habit with a perceptual practice. Food, hydration, and simple anti-inflammatory choices do not magically activate physiology, but they can reduce background static. They can make the inner environment quieter, more receptive, more likely to notice subtle signals when you deliberately open the peripheral register. Here is the core practice. I call it the soft gaze. It is deceptively simple and intentionally unremarkable because the ordinary is where the extraordinary hides. Prepare a quiet, dimly lit room. Sit comfortably with your spine supported and your body relaxed. The light should be low enough that sharp details soften, but not so dark that you strain. Look ahead, but do not focus. Allow your eyes to go soft. The central point of your sight should be neutral, as if you're looking through the scene rather than at it. Now expand awareness outward from that center into the periphery. Notice motion first: a shift of light, a flicker, a subtle shimmer. Do not stare at any shape that appears. Keep the gaze diffuse. If you feel a tendency to fixate, gently return to the soft center and widen again. Practice this for 10 uninterrupted minutes each evening, preferably within an hour before sleep when the mind is naturally converging and the world's visual noise is lower. Because this is practical and stepwise, I'll narrate the precise sequence so you can follow it at home. First, prepare the room. Neutral background, minimal clutter, low warm light. A lamp behind you or to the side is ideal. Sit at a comfortable distance from the field of view. 15 to 20 feet of empty space is fine. Second, settle the body. 2 minutes of breath awareness to drop into the present. Third, set the eyes. Pick a midpoint on the wall and then deliberately let your focus blur. Feel the edges of your vision come alive without making them sharp. Fourth, widen attention. Without moving your head, let your awareness roam to the left, the right, above, below, and then return to the neutral center. Fifth, respond gently. If something in the periphery moves, acknowledge it with a quiet inward note, I see movement, and keep the gaze soft. Do not pursue or point at it externally. The key is not aggressive, observant attention. After 10 minutes, close your eyes and journal immediately for 3 to 5 minutes.
Record any sensations, images, feelings, or physical changes in temperature or pressure. This journaling is as vital as the gaze because it trains the interpretive apparatus to notice patterns over days. Now, the dietary support. When the title of this video promised "Eat This," I mean a modest, safe habit that complements the practice, not a miracle food that will automatically open anything. Choose a small, nourishing ritual each day that reduces internal noise and supports metabolic clarity. For 7 days, integrate 1 antioxidant-rich serving, a bowl of mixed berries, for example, and a conscious hydration habit, a full glass of clean water upon waking, and another glass 30 minutes before your evening practice. If you tolerate it and have no contraindications, add a pinch of turmeric to a warm beverage once a day. Turmeric has a long history as an anti-inflammatory culinary spice. Here, it functions as a gentle example of foods that support clarity. Some practitioners like a small square of high-quality raw cacao for mood and alertness. If you are sensitive to stimulants, skip it. The rule is simple. Choose wholesome, minimally processed foods you know you tolerate, and keep the portions small so the body is not burdened by heavy digestion before the evening practice. The full 7-day plan looks like this in practice. On day 1, begin by preparing your room and completing a baseline journal entry. Note how alert you feel, any unusual dreams, and baseline vision observations. Do you notice movement in the corners of your visual field today? Eat a berry bowl in the afternoon, drink a glass of water on waking, and perform the 10-minute soft gaze practice at dusk. On days 2 and 3, keep the same food habit and hydration pattern, and add 1 optional turmeric beverage in the morning. Journal after each session, paying attention to subtle emotional shifts. Are you calmer, more irritable, more aware? On days 4 and 5, continue the routine. Many practitioners report their first perceptual hints in this window: a flicker at the edge of your sight, a texture that feels transient, a sense of being observed by something small and mobile. On day 6 and 7, remain steady and refuse the temptation to intensify the practice. The final evening, write a longer reflection. List 3 concrete changes you noticed and 1 question you have. This disciplined documentation is how subjective experiences become shared knowledge, carefully and responsibly. I need to emphasize safety and boundaries here. This practice is about personal perception and reclaiming your inner field. It is not a protocol for public confrontation or for diagnosing other people. If you perceive a presence or a form, do not run up to strangers and accuse them of being hosts to anything. Keep your work local: your bedroom, a quiet living area, a sit spot where you can control lighting, and exit if you feel uncomfortable. If a perception is disturbing, stop, ground yourself with breath, drink water, and shift your attention to something neutral, like the texture of a wall or the sound of a distant fan. Establishing calm personal boundaries is more effective than attempting rituals of expulsion. Many practitioners describe the most effective neutralization as simple observation. When you see something, name it inwardly, hold your center, and the phenomenon often loses intensity. Visibility changes the dynamic. Observation itself can be a power that rebalances attention. What might you actually notice? Reports converge on a handful of phenomenological signatures. Some people describe smoky, semi-transparent shapes that drift at the edges of perception, like heat shimmer over asphalt. Others see quick skittering motions, flashes of movement that vanish when you turn your head. A common description is the appearance of layers in space, an overlay of faint patterns or distortions that sit in front of the furniture you know is there. Importantly, many practitioners say the crucial test is responsiveness. These phenomena often react to attention. When you widen your soft gaze and include them, they may shift course, intensify, withdraw, or behave as if aware of being observed. That reactivity is a key diagnostic sign for those working in this modality. It distinguishes an internal imagination from a phenomenon that occupies the same field as you do. I will caution again, this is anecdotal and subjective. Some experiences will be purely inner imagery, others might feel externally directed. Your journal is your laboratory for sorting these. Let me give you a short list of signs to look for after each session, so your journaling is focused and useful. Ask yourself, did I notice movement in the corners of my vision? Did any image or shape change when I included it in my soft gaze? Did the room feel colder, warmer, or electrically charged at any point? Did I experience a sudden emotional shift unrelated to thought? Did any image persist after I closed my eyes? These simple questions, recorded daily, form a pattern over time. Patterns are the only reliable data we have for subjective phenomena. Now, a necessary historical and textual anchor. When I speak of chosen students and trained sight, I am referencing certain Gnostic writings preserved in the Nag Hammadi corpus. Passages attributed to the Gospel of Mary and other texts describe disciples receiving instructions in inner vision and knowing. Some contemporary readers interpret these accounts as metaphorical. Others take them as records of practical techniques passed down in small circles. I mention these sources to place the practice in a lineage of perception training, not to claim that canonical scripture endorses every esoteric detail. Some Gnostic sources suggest that certain forms of knowing were sidelined by dominant institutions. Whether that is a full historical account is beyond this video's scope.
My job here is to offer a careful, experiential method that honors those traces without turning them into absolute history. You should also understand that this approach has limits and contraindications. If you have a diagnosed neurological condition, severe anxiety, psychosis, or a visual impairment that alters perception in medically significant ways, consult a healthcare provider before experimenting with perceptual practices or dietary changes. If at any point you feel unsafe, stop. This is experiential content and does not replace medical advice. Consult a healthcare provider before making significant dietary changes, or if you have neurological visual conditions. Let me return to the human side of this work. Practitioners who persist with the soft gaze and supportive food habit report a psychological shift that is often as important as any visual phenomenon. They describe being less susceptible to mood-draining influences, more present with their bodies, and less easily hijacked by reactive mental loops. That is the practical value: training attention, softening reactivity, and creating a quieter inner field where subtle signals can be noticed and integrated. Visibility, in this sense, is empowerment. Once a hidden pattern is perceived, it loses the capacity to covertly guide your feeling life. That does not mean all unpleasant experiences will vanish. It means you gain the ability to notice, name, and respond, rather than being passively fed. If you try the 7-day plan, be patient and disciplined. Don't chase immediate spectacle. Do the work for the sake of training the sensorium, not to prove a theory. Keep your journal honest and granular. Time of day, what you ate, what you felt, any dream fragments, and a 1-sentence summary of whether the session felt quieter, busier, or unchanged. At the end of the week, look for trends. Often the first tangible change is subtle: a new ease in noticing motion, a faint sense of layers, a dream that echoes a shape you glimpsed while awake. That is progress. Celebrate it. Continue the practice for several weeks if you find it useful. A few practical precautions before I close. Never use this work as an excuse to stop conventional care. If you are under psychiatric treatment, speak with your clinician about adding contemplative perceptual practices. Avoid stimulants, high doses of unknown supplements, and anything that promises rapid decalcification or organ activation. Those are red flags. Do not attempt to publicly shame or force others into your perceptual framework. Maintain compassion and discretion. If a perception causes persistent distress, seek grounding modalities: breathwork, movement, contact with nature, and the presence of a trusted friend or practitioner. Finally, the invitation.
For 7 days, eat a simple supportive habit: a serving of antioxidant fruit, a mindful glass of water at waking and before practice, optional turmeric or a small square of raw cacao if you tolerate them, and commit to 10 minutes of soft gaze each evening, followed by a short journal entry. If you'd like the principal checklist and the step-by-step script for the soft gaze, type "visible" in the comments now, and I'll make it available. After you complete the week, come back and tell us one thing you noticed. Comment "visible" or share a short note about your experience. Your testimony could help someone else take a careful, practical step toward reclaiming their attention. Remember, what you are cultivating is perception, not certainty. Some Gnostic texts suggest that sight can be disciplined. Contemporary practitioners say the same in their own words. I am offering a measured, cautious synthesis, a ritual of attention, and a modest dietary habit that together create the conditions for noticing what used to go unseen. Visibility is not an absolute shield, but it is a reclaiming of agency. When you begin to see, even faintly, the things that once fed on your unawareness, you change the terms of your inner life. One journaling prompt to close with, to carry into your first evening. Describe the space you occupy in 3 sensory details that are not visual. Did anything shift in those details during or after the soft gaze? Use that observation as your baseline and build from there. If you feel unsure at any time, return to breath, water, and grounding touch. This practice asks for steadiness, curiosity, and compassion. It asks you to move slowly into an aspect of yourself that has been neglected, your ambient attention. Feed your body with simple, clean energy, tend your hydration, and open your gaze softly for 10 minutes each day. Do that for a week, journal honestly, and see what your attention begins to disclose. If you try it, come back and tell us what changed. Type visible and share one clear observation.